Welcome back to Beer, Wine, and Shine. Today, we're going to be filling a keg. And I'm going to show you how. And with all the stuff up on top, how to put it together and everything. I did a video on my 1.5 gallon mini keg that I got. However, I had intended that video to be just kind of a short little video, and I ended up going in depth, and well, I didn't post it because when I was editing the video I realized that I went into depth, which was good, and I showed you everything, except I was doing it over there on my freezer and I was standing beside it, so I had the camera on the keg and it was chopped my head off, and the only thing you can see was my belly hanging out underneath my shirt. I'm just like, oh my goodness gracious. I've noticed that I need to start working on my attire on videos. I usually dress for comfort, and then I watch my videos and I got a hole in my belly in my shirt, or a stain on there from brewing earlier, or, you know, belly hanging out or something, you know. So I didn't post it, and I did use the little CO2 cartridges. I did eventually move the camera, and I may go back through there and see if I can't salvage some of it, because I did use the cartridges, and I would kind of like to show that. So I may just clip out the ending where I show you how to use the cartridge on that video. But anyway, without further ado, let's get on with today. That's what gave me the idea to do an in-depth. So this is a 5-gallon corny keg, they call it, okay? They used to have soda syrup in it back in the day, and they're still being used. You can even still find some that still have the old syrup in them. You know, it's just been sitting in a warehouse. Apparently back in the day there was millions of them. So, and you know, of course you can get new manufactured ones too. This one is used. I picked it up at my brew shop, and actually, you know, it's got dents in it, you know, right here, and I mean, it's well used. This is actually going to be this is the first time I even looked at it since I bought it. So now there's two main types. I think there's only two types, but I don't want to say that definitely because I'm not sure. I mean, I do know that they also have ones that are centered like the 15-gallon, you know, big size kegs. But as far as the corny kegs go, I think there's only two types, but I'm gonna just leave it with two main types. That's ball lock and pin lock. Okay, ball lock was Pepsi. Pin lock was Coke. So they have different connections. Now I don't have a pin lock, but this is a ball lock, okay? So what you do is you would grab, when you put it down on here, right? You pull back on this. See how that slides? Okay? That's the ball lock. You pull it back, you put it down, push it down, you let go, and it locks on there. The pin lock is called a pin lock because it's got two pins on the side, and what you do is you push it down, you line up the pins with the hole in the side, like there would be a groove right here, right? And then a 90, right? You know how that, you understand what I'm trying to say? You'd push that down on there and then twist it 45 degrees, and that pin is in that groove, you know, and that's what holds it. It's just a different style. The ball locks are just a little thinner and taller. The pin locks are a little shorter and just a little fatter. I think, or at least in my area, ball locks are more common. That may just be my area. I don't know. But they are definitely a lot more common. And I would personally always go with the same size of keg, or the same style of keg, if you've got like a keezer or a kegerator. Just because that way you know you don't have to have different fittings, and when you build your kegerator or keezer, you don't have to accommodate for different sizes. But you can do what you want. That's just an opinion. So anyway, let's get on with it. Okay, now I have done cleaned this keg and sanitized it. Now, it's got a big opening in the top, right? So when you go try to clean it, my arm only fit down so far. So you got to use like a big brush, or if you have one of these, this is actually a carboy cleaner, glass carboy cleaner, but you put it on a drill and you put it down inside your carboy and you spin it, and these things rub against the end. Works the same way. The only difference is that you really kind of got to hold the top here to hold it. It's a little more complicated because you don't want it to just start going ape shit on you, but it's just a suggestion, that way you can get a good cleaning on it. So you have the center post here, right? So the center post has this. This is the lid. It's oval shaped. It's got a pressure release valve here. Now you can pull that pressure release valve and turn it into 90 because it's got this little O-ring on it. That'll help hold it open if you ever need to. But make sure that that O-ring is down in there when you want it sealed. You got a gasket. And I'll show this later, but literally it just goes down in there and then you plop it over. It's that simple. Now as far as the two, you got in and out. Okay? Pretty simple. This side is marked on the handles in. Sometimes it could be marked down here. Some of them may not be marked at all. Now the in slot has just this short little, it's focusing on my face. Can you see that? It's just a short little deal. It's got a little rubber O-ring on there. Okay? That goes right down in there. And you know it's the short one for the in because that's where the gas comes in, your CO2. And you don't want your CO2 to go all the way to the bottom and be bubbling up. So you want it pushing down on the top of the beer. Okay? So that's how you know that it's a short one. Okay? Now, this is keg lube. Okay, it's petroleum gel lubricant. Food grade. You want to always put a little bit on your gasket. Anything and everything that's got a little O-ring on it, you want to put that on there. Just a dab will do you. Okay. What that does, this lubricant is just like trans gel for those of you who rebuild transmissions. As soon as liquid touches it, it's going to melt. Consider it to be an assembly lube. So if you put the end on there and it's not lubed up, you can catch it on the threads or on the edge there or something and rip it, not even know it. And then you got a leak. Okay? So that's why you always want to lube up all of your O-rings, okay? Now I want to show a couple things here with these ends. So, okay, so see this right here? You're looking at this flange right here. This one's big. This one's real tiny. Okay. The small one is your in, and the big one is your out. Okay, this little flange right here. That's important to know. Gas side, beer side, in, out. Also, there are two different styles. Okay, these are both outs. This one, this little centerpiece, doesn't come out. And if you look down in there, I don't know if I can. Okay, I turned the volume down a little bit. I hope it wasn't blowing your eardrums out. But if you look real close, zoom in if you have to. But see, it's got a little thing in there that there's a spring. There's a spring in here that pushes against here. Okay? This one is a one piece. It doesn't come out because it's got that little carrier in there that holds it in place. Okay? This one is different. See how that comes out? Then you've got this little piece here. This little piece has an O-ring right here on the end. Sorry about the autofocus here. I haven't figured this out yet. Okay. Remember the flat side? Because you got a side that's, the O-ring goes down. Okay. And then you got this little cone spring. The cone part, the small side, goes in. And then you're going to have your rod. This is your down rod. It's going to go in there like that. It's got an O-ring on there. This one doesn't have it, probably because it's for the other style, but sometimes you'll have a little deal there to line up on the spring. I hope you could see that. I'm having problems with the autofocus. I need to figure that out. So this is the down tube. This goes in the outside because it sucks the beer from the bottom. Right? This one's the in. This one's the out. Gas goes in, pushes down on top of the beer. Beer gets forced up through the tube and out. Does that make sense? It just goes down in the hole just like this one. Okay, pretty easy peasy. This is pretty. It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. I'm actually probably over explaining it. Just I don't know why, because that's what I do. So the small one is the in. So that's ready to assemble. Right there. Now I hope I can even get this tight because I just realized, oh, my deer's back. I live out in the woods and I got critters that come around, sniff around. I like my critters. I shot my deer from inside my living room, right out my front door. Stood right in the middle of my living room. So I don't have a wrench big enough. That ought to be plenty tight. Okay, so that one's set. Now I'm actually not going to be using this because guess what? I'm doing something I've never done before. Imagine that. This is going to be filled with a beer that I'm lagering. So it comes with its own tube. This one's really short. It's not as short as the other one, but it's still pretty short. Okay. I'm going to lube her up. Well, you might ask me, well, how are you gonna suck the beer out of there? Well, just bear with me. I'll get to that. It's pretty nifty. Everybody in the beer world probably already knows what I'm talking about. So anyway, you got a tube, and a rubber tube instead of that stainless steel downspout. Okay, the rubber tube on the end there. You want to make sure that it's okay. Now, because this is going to be filled with something that's going to lager, which means it's going to lager for a few months inside here, which means it's going to clear out. There's going to be sediment on the bottom. This is a floating ball. Pretty nifty. Oh, because this ball is just the floating device. This little end piece here is hollow all the way through, so it's going to suck the beer up that way. Okay. Okay. I literally just glanced at the picture like for 3 seconds before I started this video, so that don't tell you how pretty self-explanatory all this really is. But I'm going to make a video about it anyway. So it goes on there just like that. Okay. Now this goes. I'm not very smart. Well, I've already got it together, so I can't put the ball through that little tiny ass hole. I'm a genius. Yes, I am. So I'm just gonna take this thing off because it's easier to get that than to get that other thing off there, because I kind of put it on there a little far. Ain't that a kick in the dick? So apparently you cannot put, I didn't read the instructions. So you have to put this in first. Then you have to put on your ball lock connection. Basically just makes it easier to put the tube on. This is going to be kind of a pain, I suspect. If it is, I may dedicate this to lagering. Well, no, because I still got to take it apart to clean it. Just kind of got to do it by feel. That wasn't too bad. It was a lot harder to put on the first time, I'll tell you that much. Yeah, that slid right on there now. She's on there, and she's on the bottom. That's pretty much it. Yeah. I can't do anything with those seals. I don't think I like this style, because there is a gasket right in there, and there's a seal, and there's a spring. The other style, you can take that spring out and take that gasket out, replace the gasket, lube the gasket. These, unless there's a way, maybe you can turn that little thing and pop it out. I don't know. I ain't never seen one like that before. If anybody knows, let me know. I don't want to stick a screwdriver in there and break it if it's not supposed to come out. So if you know if that style will come out, and put it in the comments for me and for everybody else. Tell me how that's supposed to come out, if it's supposed to come out. Like I said, I don't want to break it. So the reason that I was using my little CO2 cartridges on my mini keg is because I found out that I had a leak in my keg system somewhere. And I lost all my damn CO2. Fresh bottle. Feels fresh. So, this is a standard CO2 bottle. you know, on-off valve, threads, pretty simple. And you got to get a regulator. You have to have a regulator. Okay. I didn't show how to put this together because, well, it's already been together. So anyway, in order to put this regulator on your CO2 tank, you need some thread tape, plumber's thread tape. You might be able to use pipe dope, I don't know. I guess I don't see why not. But when you put on thread tape, if you don't know what pipe dope is, it's a compound that you put on with a brush. So when you put on thread tape, you always want to look at your threads, and you want to go in the direction that you would tighten, right? Righty tighty, lefty loosey. So you want to go on like when this screws on in the same direction. If you put it on backwards, what'll happen is you'll actually rip this off the threads. It'll actually unwind it off the threads. You don't want to do that. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes not so much. It may not leak right away, but it will eventually. Most of the time it just leaks right away. So always start here at the end. Try to make sure that it's not it's kind of a pain in the butt to put on, because sometimes it wants to get thin on you. I don't know how to explain that. So you just go around, you overlap about halfway all the way around. And then, you know, just come once back, and that's it. You don't need to go all stupid with it. Okay. It's actually probably too much, but I like to go from one side of the thread to the other. If you can see that, let me hide my face so it'll focus on this thing. You don't need it super thick, but you do need it thick enough. This has got a little plastic gasket, goes on the end. Okay, this little plastic gasket here, that little white thing, it goes flush up against the end right there. So you want to make sure that you don't have any thread tape on that flat surface there. It'll cause a leak. Okay, looks like I'm good. A little piece right there, looks like I'm good. Just put that on there, make sure. Okay, go ahead and get her started. Kind of a long. I think the other tank had a longer thing on there. This one's kind of being a pain in the butt. Takes a big ass wrench or a pipe wrench. I don't have a wrench that size, so I'm just going to use my pipe wrench. Maybe. Yeah, see, the other one had a lot longer of a thing on there. This one's kind of a pain in the ass. It's probably plenty tight. You don't have to get all stupid with it. Okay, so that's the CO2 tank. Okay. Now on your keg, you're going to take the other end This is your CO2, so it goes on the inside. I have already lubed that gasket. You hear that snap into place? That's on there. Okay? Now, on this knob here, this knob right here, this big old knob, I do believe all the way out should be off. I'll know here in a second, I'll tell you that much. Yep. This tank has got about 700 pounds PSI in it. This gauge here tells you your PSI in the tank. This one here tells the PSI coming out. Okay? I've got the CO2 on the inside and I don't even have the lid on it yet. That's by design. Because what we want to do right now is tighten this up so that it lets CO2 in. Okay? I don't know if you can hear that. But all I did was turn this on just a little bit and I'm pumping CO2 in the bottom of this tank. CO2 is heavier than oxygen. So I'm putting a little bit of CO2 in there. I'll put my hand over the lid so I'm not wasting my CO2. CO2 is heavier than oxygen. So the CO2 is going to go down to the bottom of the tank. And you don't need to put much in it. Just a little. At a time. Like, don't open this thing all the way up, just blow gas in it. Just let it leak in there a little bit for like a second and then close it. And then do it again. Can you hear that? I'm going to do it without talking. Okay, that's probably plenty. Now I should have a layer in the bottom of the tank that has CO2 in it. Okay. Now, for now, I can now disconnect this because I have CO2 in the bottom of the tank, or bottom of the keg. That's called purging your keg with CO2. The reason you do that is to combat oxygen. So when I siphon my beer into my keg, the tube on my siphon is going to go in the bottom of the keg. Okay, this has been my sanitizer bucket. This end of this tube is going to go right down that middle hole right there. Okay. Doing this sitting down. My dogs are barking like really bad. Probably not going to be able to see this too well. Basically, there she goes. So if you have CO2 in the bottom of the tank or bottom of the keg, you put your hose at the bottom. That way your beer is actually going into a layer of CO2 and not oxygen. And as the beer rises up, there will be CO2 on top of that beer, pushing and expelling oxygen out of the keg. I hope that makes sense. Now, this beer is going to be lagering, so I actually put this in the when it was done fermenting about 2 days ago. I siphoned it out of the primary fermenter and I put it inside this fermenter and I put it in my fridge to cold crash. That's going to get some settlement at the bottom. Actually, it didn't look like there's hardly any there at all. It's a pretty clean ferment. It is hazy though still, so it's just going to take some time to lager out for everything to fall out, and it'll look clear. All right, my keg is plumb full. Plumb full. I actually still have this much in the bottom of my fermenter, but it's full. So, that's okay. So now we're back to this. So you definitely want to take some keg lube and lube up this big ass gasket. Now this, you're going to be a little more liberal with it. I'm just going to go about halfway around there like that. That way I can go all the way around and then flip it over and go back the other way. Just smear it all over, kind of like KY. And you just put it right back on your thing. And it is going to be awfully slippery now, but once it's on there, it's oval, so you got to put it in there sideways, kind of dip it down in and just pull up on it. It's that simple. Let me go wash my hands. Okay, now the final step here is to hook your CO2 back up. Don't knock the tank over and make a rocket out of it. See what I did to my thing over there? I caught it on my spinders. I'm so mad. Now I gotta replace that. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention it because I'm mad. Okay, so now we've got our ball lock on the end slot. Now you want to shut your gas all the way off there, and then, well, no, turn it on a little bit. We're gonna do just like we did at the beginning when we purged the bottom of the tank. Oh wow, that's freezing cold now. The colder the better, by the way. I didn't mention that before, but I put that in the refrigerator, the beer, in that secondary fermenter for two reasons. One was to cold crash it to get any kind of sediment that'll come out right away out of it before I even put it in the keg. But the second reason, which is actually more important, and you really kind of want to do it with any beer that you do. You want to cold crash it before you put it in the keg if you can. If you've got the space. If you can put your fermenter in the refrigerator or siphon it into a secondary fermenter. That's the best way to do it. Also, if you can, cool your keg. Now this is freezing cold, so that's not as necessary as just chilling the beer, okay? And the reason for that is because cold beer takes CO2. Warm beer will take it it will take it, but it takes it a whole lot slower, okay? So if you want a good, quick carbonation of your beer, especially if you're wanting to pull off of it right now, get your beer cold, then put CO2 to it. So now, right now, we've got, might have some oxygen in here. We really shouldn't, because we put some CO2 in the bottom, and when we filled the beer, it pushed the oxygen out. Should be a layer of CO2 on top, but we want to make sure. So what we're going to do is just give it a little bit of CO2 And then this pressure release valve at the top, I just sprayed beer all over my camera. She's full. Just barely turn your gas on. I can actually probably turn that pressure down. It doesn't take much, because literally there's like this much air on top of the beer, from the beer to the lid. I'm just getting beer all over myself. That's plenty, okay? So now we're purged. Let me do it one more time just to be sure. Beer all over my camera. Okay. Smells like beer. Alright, now I'm satisfied. So now we're going to turn our big knob here all the way off, so we're not actually putting any CO2 in the tank. And then we're going to turn the tank all the way on. Always turn your tank all the way on, never halfway or anything like that when it's in your kegerator or wherever, okay? Now I'm going to adjust until I put 10 pounds on it, okay? I'm going to shake this. What that is doing is getting CO2 into the tank. Now normally you could put like 10, 15, or 15, 20 pounds on it right off the bat. Shake it. This is called forced carbonating, okay? Give it a little more. That is causing this beer to take CO2. That's all I'm doing. I'm going to shut my gas all the way off. And that's it. That was actually more than I was even going to do. That's it. Now if you're wanting to drink this right away, you would put like 15, 20 pounds on it and shake it for like 5 minutes. A lot of people will put 20 pounds on it and then disconnect and then shake. That way they know they're putting in carbonation. You can overcarbonate doing that. So if you leave it on 20 pounds and just shake it like I did, I probably put a whole lot more carbonation in this than I really wanted to. And really, you can put like 5 pounds or 10 pounds of CO2 in it, disconnect it, shake it, and then reconnect, and then just put like 3 to 5 pounds on it and disconnect it, and it'll have pressure, it'll have a little bit of carbonation. It's shelf stable. There's no oxygen in it. It's all CO2. Shelf stable. You can literally take this now and I could put it in my closet for 6 months or a year. Don't go too long or the beer will spoil. It will still spoil. But I didn't fully carbonate it because I don't have a double tap right now. I still got beer in my kegerator, and this needs to lager for like 3 to 4 months. However, this is Star San, especially since I got beer all over it. I'm gonna spray this down, and Star San might just use this. This is soap and water. Soap and water works a little better. But if you coat the whole thing, I'll rinse that off after a while, and I'll spray it down with some more Star San. But what that's gonna do now is leak testing it. Making sure that all my fittings, none of my fittings are leaking, soap and water. You'll have a big old bubble. Even if it's a small leak, you know, come back in 10-15 minutes and you'll have a big old bubble pocket. That's a leak. I need to do that on my CO2 side because I had a leak somewhere. Anyway, I guess that's it, and that concludes this video. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Beer, Wine, and Shine.